Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, November 2nd, 2020. My YouTube channel is ddargo2013 for as long as it'll stay up. Thanks for joining me. I have a bunch of articles that I've collected over the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to move fast like I usually do. So we have the election going on here soon, and I don't normally cover politics too much as far as elections. I don't think they really make a difference. But the biggest thing is we have this second wave, or I think they're calling it the third wave, of these lockdowns. And in the background, you have the election, which most likely is going to result in riots. And we're already seeing that start up in Philadelphia and whatnot with the cop shootings. So a lot is brewing. It's all by design. These lockdowns, especially in Europe, are just getting crazier and crazier, and it's driving people crazy. So I think this is all part of the Great Reset that I was talking about in my last videos. This first article I have for you is actually about a video, but it goes in there and has like transcripts of the video itself. But I recommend going to Activist Post and checking out this video that's called The Darkest Winter, and it lays out all the different exercises that took place. The main one was in 2001, right before 9/11. Coincidentally, they had a exercise about a pandemic, and the guy that was part of it was saying how it was going to be a dark winter because they didn't have enough of these smallpox vaccines in this simulation. And of course, that same guy is right now part of the COVID-19 task force. He went through the different exercises that were held, like the famous Event 201, which we all know about, and Rockefeller's Lockstep. But there's something in there called Crimson Contagion and Claydex, other simulations that were actually held October 2019. And you have to remember, October of 2019, I had an article. Well, I'll just get to the point here. In October 2019, that's when the infections actually started, when people were actually getting infected. But they said it started in March. So it's just kind of funny that in October 2019 they had this exercise, and I covered an article in March, basically the spring when the lockdown started, that went back and said that people in America, in the U.S., were actually already getting infected back then. They didn't say anything, so... but the main point to be made about all this is that they're all similar. They all result in the same type of actions of clamping down. And this one they actually talk about introducing the Insurrection Act, basically bring out martial law. The prohibition of free assembly, that's protesting, national travel bans, quarantine of certain areas, suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, arrest without due process, and military trials in the event that the court system becomes dysfunctional. It also talked about possibility of all these people supposedly dying, mass lockdowns, quarantine, censorship of alternative viewpoints under the guise of fighting disinformation, basically censorship, which is what we're seeing, and even floated the idea of arresting people who question the pandemic narrative. So all this stuff is already happening, and with these different tiers in Europe and stuff. Yeah. So remember this that we covered? We're going to play off this article here where Dr. Fauci a couple weeks ago was saying COVID-19 numbers would have to get really, really bad before he advocates another national lockdown, admitting that Americans are fatigued by shutdowns. So then all they have to do is just start putting out all the information like they did in the spring, talking about the millions and bazillions of cases of COVID, not people dying or getting sick, just the amount of cases because they're testing. So here we are 2 weeks after he said that. The U.S. and Europe are shattering coronavirus records in a third wave. I'm not really sure what they're talking about with the third wave. Like I said, thought it was the second wave. But either way, U.S. sees its second consecutive day of record high coronavirus cases as more than 99,000, blah, 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 blah. And here you go. White House Coronavirus Task Force Coordinator Deborah Birx has warned the governors that the situation could get even worse in the coming weeks. That's basically her telling them, they say recommending, to shut everything down, because that's what the governors did in the spring. They basically got emergency powers, dictatorial powers, which they had, and they all loved it, and they didn't want to give it up. The worst case is out there, I think, with in New York and New Jersey and California. So this is from October 21st, but it's pretty much the same thing. Hospital coronavirus admissions were overreported at the peak of pandemic, and people with other illnesses were mistakenly included. No, they get financial incentives to do that. So the COVID-19 number game, the second wave is based on fake statistics. This is from November 1st, 2020 from Global Research. I recommend going to check it out. Red zones, travel bans, quarantines, and red list, as a second wave has been announced. A second wave of lockdowns as well, I guess. The fear campaign's gone into overdrive and millions of people are lining up for COVID-19 testing. Drastic measures are contemplated, or actually they're being implemented, but including restrictions on social gatherings, marriages, funerals, and closing down of restaurants and bars, and the outright paralysis of civil society. And they're talking about the PCR test. The tests do not detect or identify the virus. Moreover, the figures are often manipulated to justify political decisions. The test results do not point to the existence of a worldwide pandemic, nor do they justify social distancing, the face mask mandate, and the closing down of the global economy. They've also altered the definition for a pandemic, whereas before I think it was a lot of people had to die. I think that's actually the definition was something, a lot of people had to die, whereas now it just has to be cases in a lot of areas, not necessarily a lot of people dying. So that's what they're doing right now. They're fulfilling their new definition for a pandemic. And there's a video on the bottom that you can check out. Goes into it more. Coronavirus hoax, healthcare workers said she did nothing during the pandemic, and there's videos of the dancing nurses that we've all seen. So what I'm getting at is a lot of this is just not really true. It's just fear-mongering again. You had Fauci saying, get ready for another lockdown. This was in September, saying we need to hunker down and get through this fall and winter because it's not going to be easy. Well, he just told us a couple of weeks that he doesn't think we're going to do a lockdown unless things get really bad. This is from October 29th. The EU chief warning Europe facing a long coronavirus pandemic. I've just seen this. Globalists call growing COVID-19 fatigue the top enemy. Now we're deeply in the second wave. We're in the third wave, the second wave. We're doing a lockdown. We're not doing a lockdown. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Months at least before the first vaccines were available. Trump's saying the vaccines are right around the corner. WHO chief hopes coronavirus pandemic will end in under 2 years. I covered that in the last video. So I'll just kind of building up to these next articles. And then comes the lockdown. October 28th, France and Germany have announced second national lockdown. The stay-at-home order except to exercise for 1 hour a day, seek medical care, or buy essential goods. And of course, we'll get to what is essential. Apparently, clothes and stuff aren't essential goods. Anyone outside their homes will have to carry a document justifying their excursion, which can be checked by the police. The leaders said they were being submerged by the rapid pace of the killer COVID-19. Austria and Greece shutting down bars, restaurants, and cinemas. I got this article yesterday. And they're really going to play with people's heads. Like I said, they're going to call it a partial shutdown. Partial. This is the new and improved lockdowns. It says restrictions will last through November. He characterized it as a second lockdown, but more lenient because schools, non-essential shops, and hairdressers can stay open. That's like in the UK and Cameron saying, announcing it for December. I'm like, why would you even do that, Just go ahead and just say we're going to be locked down in our houses until the spring. Will give us 2 weeks to come out, and we'll see the sunshine after 6 months of darkness, and then you'll just tell everybody to get back in your homes. Because that's what they're going to do. They're just going to play the game of extensions. I've seen that here in Indiana. Oh, the governor's going to extend the mask mandate. The governor's going to extend this and that. You're just waiting for it to end, but it never ends. Massive traffic jam filmed in Paris as residents attempt to flee the city ahead of a second lockdown. Here's some pictures of them trying to get out of Dodge. Incredible traffic jam in Paris as people try to leave the city before 9 p.m. curfew and before confinement begins at midnight. They're trying to tackle the spiraling COVID infections in order to stay at home except for essential work or medical reasons. And it doesn't even matter for medical reasons. They'll just, you gotta just die at home. Sorry, guys. You're just gonna have to lay in your bed and just die because you gotta leave the hospitals empty for those massive COVID patients that are never gonna come. That's actually based off facts. I mean, a lot of people died over the last 7 months because they didn't seek out care because they were told not to go to the hospital. COVID-19, Prime Minister announces 4-week lockdown in England. Now is the time to take action. He said Christmas may be very different, but he hoped taking action now would be families can get together. Can gather. So I guess being able to celebrate Christmas with your family is a privilege now. So it's going to be very different. But unlike the restrictions in the spring, schools, colleges, and universities can stay open. So see, there's that. There's the full quote. Christmas is going to be very different, but my belief is if we lock everybody down now, by taking tough action now, we can allow families across the country to be together on Christmas. But the UK police chief says cops are planning to break up Christmas celebrations, defying lockdown rules. Yes, this is from October 28th, so pretty much the same time. They're actually worried about civil unrest. We're talking about fatigue is the biggest worry for them. If we think there's a large group of people gathering on Christmas where they shouldn't be, then police will have to intervene. If again, there's flagrant breaking of the rules, then the police would have to enforce it, said this Jameson, the police commissioner in West Midlands. He says it's not the police's job to stop people enjoying Christmas, but basically it's his duty to follow the orders of government, so they're just going to follow orders. As we're sitting on a time bomb here, he believes that the public frustration with the decision to spoil Christmas celebrations could boil over into civil unrest, as UK lockdown measures have been weighing on the people for months now. You could say 7 or 8 months, and like I said, with the elections and stuff like that. And you saw how the whole Black Lives Matter protest from the George Floyd death boiled over. It actually spilled over into Europe. Why those people in Ireland would be protesting for George Floyd, I don't understand. But it's all global. It comes from the top down, from globalists who fund it. So that's why you'll see it in other places. Things are very on the edge in a lot of communities, and it wouldn't take very much to spark off unrest, riots, and damage. And I'm starting to wonder if that's actually the point, is to just keep doing this to see how much society will take until they revolt or until they start rioting for legitimate reasons. Like I said, not for a bunch of thugs that are funded by billionaires like Black Lives Matter, but actual legitimate people tired of being locked in their homes and being separated and losing their jobs. You know, I'm already at the 13-minute mark. I wish I could just keep going, dude, for like a whole hour straight. So I got 2 minutes left here. I'll try to wrap this up, and then I'll roll into another video, a part 2 video. Cops will enter homes and break up Christmas family gatherings if they break lockdown rules, wards police chief, again, October 28th. So just another article talking about it. Just pure evil, though, isn't it? In Wales, festive decorations having been taped off under the country's 7-day firebreak lockdown. Look at that. Sorry, no Santa Claus for you. No presents for you. But like I said, this is all, maybe they're just doing this on purpose to get people to actually go into civil unrest, so then they could justify a full martial law style lockdown. They already have everything in place with these tier 1s and tier 5s and red alerts and orange alerts, travel bans, health passports. Elderly people prefer death to spending Christmas without family. This was from September 27th, so a month before all this. The elderly people are saying, you know what, I know you're worried about us, getting coronavirus and dying, but I'd actually risk dying and seeing my family than spending it alone in a fucking nursing home on Christmas. Those places are like hotbeds for infections anyways, just the way they are. UK police chief, it's a civic duty to snitch on neighbors violating COVID restrictions. The UK police chief has called it a civic duty to snitch on the neighbors and businesses that violate the COVID-19 restrictions. And he was actually saying, while criticizing the culture that condemns such tattletaling, he says if Brits carry out their civic duty of snitching on those who refuse to follow the martial law as social economic restrictions imposed by the government, they will save lives. So this is the same guy that we were just talking about, the police commissioner. I remember this spring in California, I think it was LA mayor, snitches get rewards. The old expression about snitches. Well, in this case, snitches get rewards, he said. We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we're all safe. It's like the other guy said, the vast majority of people across this country are really concerned about this. They want this. That's why they're fatigued. That's why they're on the verge of civil unrest. Please join me in part 2. This is GGN. Thank you.